78. 79.
78.
80.
80.
Malap na pa. 55.
55. 55.
Steady. 60.
60. 60. Naka 60 ka na?
It's up the hill.
We can follow the wheels. As soon as Eros finishes his pull, Super Genius gives the pull to me exactly on the climb where it was more difficult. But as soon as we crested that climb, we had to roll the locomotive again and continue putting in momentum. And when you're pushing a heavier gear, like for this particular setup, we started to try out a 5811, and you could see the difference in cadence. I wasn't sure because I didn't have any cadence sensor at this moment, but watching this video would give you a sense of difference in gears. So this particular 58 chainring is only it can only be applicable for these types of time trials where high speed is key. And as scripted and choreographed, Tommy takes charge. His job is to maintain that speed as long as possible so that the Paniki cycling team does not do it. He gives me the chicken wing, meaning that he needs help, so I take charge again. Tommy takes my wheel because when riders ride as close as possible together, so this would be the mock-up build. We're just testing the dimensions if they're correct. So far everything looks proportional based on the drawing, how we designed it for Mark. You can say made to measure bike, but you know, like in any other investment, it's not cheap to have a made to measure, so we might as well make sure that he maximizes his purchase. So this is the mock-up. This is how it's gonna look like when it's all finished. We usually do this just to make sure everything is based on the dimension before we start fixing all the cranks, fixing all the bolts, fixing everything. So if you're interested, look for Jad in Singapore, or Sheng or Omar, and we can do the build here and then bring it to Singapore or Malaysia or Thailand. Thank you. Everyone has a day one. This is Tom's day one when he was a little bit bigger. And today, after a few tweaks on the cheeks and the belly,
Points top 10.
Ollie, does it matter how you make the power, i.e. what gear you're in? In my head, 250 watts in an easy gear won't give as much speed as 250 watts in a hard gear. I know it comes down to cadence at the end of the day to generate the power. That's the end of their question. So we're talking about the gear ratios that you're using to generate a certain level of power when you're cycling.
So, a few things to sort of unpick here. Right. If the mechanical efficiency of two gears is the same, then at the same power, regardless of cadence, you will go the same speed.
so what the boys are basically saying is, so for example, in an engineering standpoint, or you know, you learn this in science. So let's just imagine that we're both doing 250 watts. So let's start with that, 250 watts. So let's say I'm riding, Jad's riding. Jad will start riding at 120 RPM. I ride at 60 RPM. So 250 watts, Jad 120 RPM, 250 watts for me at 60 RPM. And the boys are saying that we can ride at the same 35 kilometers per hour. Okay, so if you can see now, same speed, same power, but two different cadence. So here's another very beautiful visual example. This time it's going to be Tom and me. At the same 50 to 52 kilometer per hour speed, Tom is going at a higher RPM. I'm going at a lower RPM. So what Ollie is saying now is it all boils down to preference, physical preference, which means that you can customize your training program to what really suitable for you.
The main reason why you don't pedal at 30 RPM or don't pedal at 200 RPM,
Yeah.
and people naturally find a cadence that works for them, is because of sort of biomechanical efficiency of your body. You're going to build up a lot more lactate, your muscles are going to fatigue much more, whereas if you're doing a low cadence, whereas if you're doing a high cadence, you're too reliant on your aerobic system. And what you find is that the body naturally finds a balance where it's able to use both sort of anaerobic and aerobic systems, a bit to find the optimum efficiency. And in most cases, in trained cyclists, that's kind of around 85 to 95 RPM,
Yeah,
probably
that's
for
fair,
most people. There's been a lot of studies on cadence, and it is something that you can train and adjust in order to become more efficient and pedal at higher cadences.
Some of the simple rules or guides I was always told when I was growing up about pedaling cadence. A lower cadence really shifts a lot of the stress onto your physical legs, onto the muscles, because there's far more torque required. So it's a more muscular effort. And increase your cadence, it moves a little bit of that force away from your legs and moves it towards your aerobic system. And that comes on to what you're saying about being a little bit more efficient, because the body's able to cope with the demands on it better than that real high stress that's put onto the muscles.
Yeah.
So why does CRZ focus on, or why do we focus on low cadence? If I may repeat what Ollie said, at high RPM we transfer the load to the aerobic, which is your heart rate. Okay, and that's the reason why there are a lot of zone training: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1 would be the easiest heart rate, zone 5 would be the craziest heart rate. And that is mileage based, so meaning that you have to always keep on riding to improve your zones. On the other hand, for individuals like most of us who are not pros, or our time is limited because there are social obligations to attend, work, or even family, what we do now is that instead we transfer the load to the muscular. Now, if you did not undergo the biomechanical tuning process, obviously your muscles will get tired too fast because of the outrageous amount of torque. Hence, the CRZ biomechanical workshops teaches you how to focus on your muscular. So muscular power or muscular torque is the essence of the CRZ program, because most of us do not have the ability anymore to put the load into the heart rate. And this is evidence when you start watching the boys race in CLEX. So majority of the guys over there, some of them ex-pros, most of them seasoned cyclists, they are into the high RPM workout. And the visual evidence shows that guys like Nikki, guys like M, guys like Benjo, even Z, are able to start riding at the same speed, but lower RPM. And it's nice what Ollie's gonna say on the next slide, that Bradley Wiggins had to change his style from high RPM to low RPM to start beating the world champion Tony Martin.
That said though, one thing is quite interesting is Bradley Wiggins, when he wanted to beat Tony Martin at time trials, they analysed it and they saw that Tony Martin's cadence was lower, so Bradley Wiggins copied that and then he started beating him. So he went a bit lower, started grinding a bit, like sort of 80 RPM rather than 100 RPM, which is what he was sort of doing naturally from the track.
Interesting.
So hopefully this episode becomes very interesting for you. Feel free to share, but remember, cadence and RPM are personal preference. You cannot just do whatever you see on TV, or you cannot just copy what most of us are doing, or say CRZ, because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, okay? But if you want high RPM, still no problem. But I always believe that never deny what you feel. Never deny, okay? Whatever you felt, that becomes the absolute truth. regardless of what you read, whatever articles that you watch, because sometimes the industry tries to sponsor YouTube episodes to always gear towards whatever they're trying to market. Okay, thank you very much. See you on the next ride.